The small human diplomatic vessel, Handshake, drifted through space, its metal hull gleaming under the light of unfamiliar stars. Inside, Ambassador John Miller adjusted his uniform one last time before the approaching transfer. His weathered face showed no fear, though he was about to become the first human to set foot on the legendary Galactic Council station. "Final approach to Docking Bay 7, announced pilot Sam Griffin from the cockpit. "Zentari Control is giving us permission to dock." John nodded, his gray eyes fixed on the viewport. The massive space station loomed ahead, a spinning wheel of light and metal that housed representatives from 17 advanced alien civilizations. Next to it, their small ship looked like a minnow swimming beside a whale. "Remember the plan," said Lisa Brown, the communications specialist. Her brown hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her expression serious. "Standard protocol. Show respect, but don't show weakness." "I know," John replied, watching as the enormous docking bay swallowed their ship. "Let them underestimate us. That's exactly what we want." The landing was smooth. When the airlock hissed open, John found himself facing 4 Zentari guards. They stood over 7 feet tall with sleek iridescent skin that shifted colors in the light. Their faces were almost human-like, except for the double set of eyes and the small mandibles that framed their mouths. "Ambassador Miller," said the lead guard in perfect English. "I am Security Chief Krell. Please follow me to decontamination before the council session." John walked beside the towering alien through curved hallways filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some looked almost human. Others defied description. Floating clouds of gas, crystalline structures that moved like liquid, and beings made of what appeared to be pure energy. "First time seeing other species?" Krell asked, noticing John's careful observations. "We've had limited contact," John replied simply. The decontamination chamber was quick but thorough. Afterward, John was led to a small waiting room with a large window overlooking the central council chamber. The room was filled with representatives from across the galaxy, all giving him curious looks. A small, rodent-like alien approached, its fur a vibrant purple. "So you're the human everyone's talking about. I'm Ambassador Neely of the Firth Collective. Is it true your species only left its solar system 30 years ago?" 27 years, John corrected with a polite smile. "Fascinating. And you've already developed simple warp technology. It took my species nearly 2 centuries after achieving spaceflight." Neely's whiskers twitched with excitement. Before John could respond, a tall Zentari official entered the waiting room. Supreme Commander Zax cut an imposing figure, his skin shifting between deep blues and purples, a sign of high rank among his kind. "Ambassador Miller," Zax said, not bothering with pleasantries. "The council will see you now. Try not to waste too much of our time with your primitive requests." The council chamber was enormous, with 17 raised platforms arranged in a circle. Each platform held representatives from a different species. In the center was a small podium where John would stand. The room was designed to intimidate, and John had to admit it worked well. As he walked to the center, whispers followed him. He caught snippets of conversation, barely out of their gravity well, still fighting among themselves. Surprised they didn't blow up their planet. John reached the podium and stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back, in parade rest. The chamber quieted as Counselor Vexnar, a senior Zentari official, activated his translation device. "The council recognizes Ambassador John Miller of Earth," Vexnar announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "State your business before the Galactic Council." John cleared his throat. "Honorable representatives of the Galactic Council, I bring greetings from Earth and the United Human Government. We seek peaceful relations and exchange of knowledge with the advanced civilizations of our galaxy." A ripple of what sounded like laughter spread through the chamber. "Ambassador Miller," said Vexnar, his mandibles clicking with barely contained amusement. "Our scans of your vessel show technology barely able to achieve stable faster-than-light travel. So you're telling us your species has only mastered this technology within the last decade?" "That's correct," John replied, maintaining his composure despite more laughter. Commander Zax rose from his ornate chair on the Zentari platform. And this modest vessel of yours represents the pinnacle of human engineering? Holographic images of John's small diplomatic ship appeared above the central floor. Beside it, for comparison, floated images of massive Zentari warships, each at least 20 times larger and bristling with weapons. Next to them, the human ship looked like a child's toy. "We are still developing our technology," John said, his voice steady. "But we are quick learners." This brought outright laughter from several council members. One reptilian alien nearly fell from its perch. "How adorable," said a gelatinous being from one of the platforms. "They think they'll catch up." John waited for the laughter to subside. He had expected this. In fact, the mission planners had counted on it. "We come in peace," John continued, "seeking alliance and knowledge exchange with all peaceful civilizations." Zax made a dismissive gesture with his four-fingered hand. "How quaint. Your species will make an excellent client race for the Zentari Empire. We're always in need of new mining colonies. Your moon looks particularly resource-rich." John's expression darkened slightly. "I don't believe I mentioned anything about mining rights or client status, Commander Zax." The Zentari leader smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. "You didn't have to, human. Primitive species like yours always follow the same path. First contact, technological inferiority, protection agreements, resource extraction, and eventually, integration into a greater power. You'll serve the Zentari Empire." "Well, perhaps we should discuss this further," John suggested, his voice cooling. "Earth is interested in fair trade and mutual benefit, not servitude." This brought more laughter from the council. Zax didn't bother hiding his amusement. "Your species doesn't seem to understand its position, Ambassador," Zax said. "You're not here to negotiate terms. You're here to receive them." From one of the other platforms, a crystalline being shifted forward. This was Sorix of the Krell, one of the oldest species in the council. Unlike the others, Sorix didn't seem amused. "Perhaps we should hear what Earth has to offer before making such decisions," Sorix suggested, its voice a strange harmony of tones. Zax waved dismissively. "The humans have nothing to offer that we can't simply take if needed." John noticed several council members nodding in agreement. Others seemed uncomfortable, but unwilling to challenge the Zentari. "Commander Zax," John said calmly, "I understand your perspective. However, rushing to judgment about a newly contacted species seems premature. We humans have a saying, don't judge a book by its cover." "What is this book?" asked another council member, genuinely confused. "A collection of information," John explained. "The saying means appearances can be deceiving." Zax laughed again. "There's no deception here, human. We've scanned your ship, analyzed your technology, and even mapped your home system. Your species is exactly what it appears to be, newly spacebound. Primates stumbling into a galaxy far beyond your comprehension." John simply nodded, giving nothing away. "If that's what you believe, Commander." "It's what we know," Zax replied confidently. "The council session is over for today. Tomorrow we will discuss the terms of Earth's integration into the Zentari sphere of influence. Until then, you will be provided quarters suitable for your station." As the council members began to disperse, John was escorted from the chamber by Zentari guards. Walking back to the diplomatic quarters, he allowed himself a small smile. Phase 1 of the mission was complete. The Zentari had taken the bait. In his quarters, once he was certain the room was secure, John activated a small device hidden in his sleeve. It displayed a countdown. 36 hours, 42 minutes until the arrival of the UES Liberty. The real first contact was about to begin. John Miller sat alone in his assigned quarters aboard the Galactic Council station. The room was small and plain, clearly designed for species the Zentari considered unimportant. The single window offered a view of the endless blackness of space, dotted with unfamiliar stars. A soft knock at the door broke his concentration. "Enter," John called. Lisa Brown slipped inside, looking over her shoulder to make sure no one had followed her. The communications specialist carried a small metal case which she placed carefully on the table between them. Were you followed? John asked quietly. Lisa shook her head. No, they're watching us, but not as closely as they should. They really do think we're harmless. John smiled slightly. Good. That's exactly what we wanted. Lisa opened the case to reveal a specialized communications device unlike anything the Centauri had seen on their ship. Its technology was far more advanced than what the aliens believed humans possessed. Did you manage to send the signal? John asked. Yes, Lisa replied, her fingers moving quickly over the device's surface. The encrypted transmission reached Admiral Rogers 30 minutes ago. The Phoenix protocol is active. And the Liberty? Lisa's face broke into a small smile. The Mothership was already at the edge of the system when we arrived, just as planned. According to the response I just received, they'll reach our position in approximately 37 hours. Good, John said, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. The Centauri diplomatic scans only detected our ship's minimal defensive capabilities. They have no idea what's coming. They scanned us 10 different ways, Lisa said, laughing softly. And every time they found exactly what we wanted them to find. Outdated technology, minimal weapons, and a small, seemingly insignificant human presence in space. John stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Project Shadow. SHIELD worked perfectly. 27 years of hiding our true capabilities, making the galaxy believe we were just taking our first steps into space, while all along we've been building the largest fleet this side of the galaxy, Lisa finished. A moment of comfortable silence passed between them. Both had trained for years for this mission, to present humanity as vulnerable newcomers to galactic society, rather than the powerhouse they truly were. Do you think it was necessary? Lisa asked suddenly. All this deception? John turned from the window. You've studied Earth's history as much as I have. What happens when technologically superior civilizations meet less advanced ones? The less advanced ones usually suffer, Lisa admitted. Exactly. We needed to understand the political landscape first, to see who would treat us as equals despite our apparent weakness. John's face hardened. And now we know. The door chimed again. This time, it was Sam Griffin, their pilot. His face was flushed with anger. You're not going to believe what they're planning, Sam said as soon as the door closed behind him. I was in the observation deck when I overheard 2 Centauri officials talking. They're already dividing Earth's resources among their allies. John wasn't surprised. What specifically did you hear? They're planning mining operations not just on the moon but across the entire solar system. Mars, the asteroid belt, even some of Jupiter's moons. Sam's fists clenched at his sides. They talked about us like we were animals who happened to be living on valuable real estate. Lisa's expression darkened. Did they mention anything about Earth itself? Sam nodded grimly. They're planning to relocate most of the human population to labor colonies. Only those useful to the Centauri would remain on Earth. John's face remained calm, but his eyes burned with quiet anger. Did they mention when they planned to present these terms? Tomorrow's council session, Sam replied. From what I gathered, it's already been decided. The other council species either agree with the plan or are too afraid of the Centauri to object. John nodded slowly. Then we proceed as planned. Lisa, send an update to the Liberty. Tell Admiral Rogers to prepare for Phase 2. Back in the council chambers the next day, the discussions had deteriorated further. The Centauri were now openly dividing Earth's resources among their allies, treating John as little more than a curious observer to his own planet's fate. Your oceans alone contain enough rare elements to power our fleet for centuries, Zax announced, to approving nods from the other alien representatives. And the fertile lands will be perfect for growing specialty crops needed throughout the Empire. John sat silently, noting which species seemed eager to profit from Earth and which seemed uncomfortable with the proceedings. The information would be valuable later. Now, regarding the human population, Zax continued, bringing up a holographic image of Earth, most will be relocated to our processing centers for evaluation and assignment. Those with useful skills may serve in appropriate positions within the Empire. And those without useful skills? John asked, his voice deceptively calm. Zax waved dismissively. Labor colonies are always in need of workers. John noticed one council member who hadn't spoken throughout the proceedings. The Krell representative, Sorix, sat watching with an unreadable expression on its crystalline face. Unlike the others, the ancient species seemed to be studying John's reactions carefully. During a brief recess, John found himself alone in a viewing corridor when Sorix approached him. The crystalline being moved with surprising grace for something that appeared to be made of living crystal. Ambassador Miller, Sorix said, its voice a harmony of tones that somehow conveyed concern. I feel I must speak with you privately. John turned to face the alien. Of course, Counselor Sorix. What can I do for you? The crystalline being seemed to shimmer under the corridor lights. The Krell are an old species, Ambassador. We have seen many civilizations rise and fall. We have learned to sense certain things. What things? John asked carefully. Deception, Sorix replied simply. Not from you specifically. But there is more to your species than the Zentari believe. I sense it. John remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. The path the Zentari are choosing is unwise, Sorix continued. They see your small ship and your apparent technological simplicity, and they believe they understand humanity. I suspect they are making a grave error in judgment. Why are you telling me this? John asked. Because the Krell value balance in the galaxy. The Zentari have grown too powerful, too quickly. They have forgotten the wisdom of caution. Sorix's crystal body pulsed with soft light. Whatever happens next, know that not all species in the Council share their views. I appreciate your candor, John said carefully. Rest assured, humanity did try diplomacy first. Sorix studied him for a moment longer. Yes, I believe you did. The crystalline being turned to go, then paused. One more thing, Ambassador Miller. In the future, when you hold power, remember this conversation. As Sorix glided away, John's communicator vibrated silently against his wrist. He checked it discreetly. A message from Lisa. Liberty 12 hours out. All systems ready. John allowed himself a small smile. Soon the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. They weren't the primitive newcomers everyone thought they were. And they certainly weren't going to become anyone's slaves. As he walked back to the council chamber for the afternoon session, John mentally reviewed the carefully crafted plan that had been decades in the making. First contact, appear weak. Identify threats and potential allies. And then when the true nature of the galactic powers was revealed, show them exactly what humanity was capable of. The council reconvened early the next morning. John Miller noticed immediately that something was different. The Zentari representatives seemed tense, whispering among themselves and glancing at him with new suspicion. Commander Zax took his place, at the center of the Zentari platform, his iridescent skin shifting between dark colors, a sign of agitation John had learned. Before we continue our discussion of Earth's integration into the Zentari sphere of influence, Zax began, his voice carrying across the chamber, there are some matters that require clarification. John said nothing, waiting. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity near the outer boundary of this system, Zax continued, his four eyes fixed on John. Specifically, a distortion consistent with a large vessel dropping out of faster-than-light travel. A murmur ran through the council chamber. John kept his expression neutral. Furthermore, Zax said, raising his voice over the growing noise, this vessel appears to be on a direct course for this station. Initial scans suggest it is significantly larger than any ship in our defense fleet. Zax leaned forward, mandibles clicking with irritation. Ambassador Miller, would you care to explain this unexpected development? John rose slowly from his seat, straightening his uniform. The room fell silent, all 17 species now watching him intently. I believe, John said calmly, that would be the UES Liberty, flagship of the United Earth Fleet. It seems Admiral Rogers has decided to join our diplomatic mission. Impossible, Zax hissed, his skin flashing angry reds and oranges. Your species doesn't possess such technology. Our scans of your system showed only primitive orbital stations and small exploration vessels. John allowed himself a small smile. Commander Zax, remember when I mentioned that human saying yesterday, "Don't judge a book by its cover"? Perhaps now you understand its meaning. The chamber erupted in confused conversation. The Zentari delegation huddled together, speaking rapidly in their own language. Several other species seemed alarmed, while a few, including the crystalline Krell, appeared almost amused. A junior Zentari officer burst into the chamber, rushing to Zax's side. They conversed in hurried tones, with Zax's expression shifting from anger to genuine concern. "Ambassador Miller," Zax said, turning back to John with narrowed eyes. "Our long-range sensors have detected not one, but 7 large vessels approaching. All appear to be of human origin. Explain this immediately." "7?" John asked, raising his eyebrows in surprise. "Admiral Rogers must have brought the entire First Fleet. I was only expecting the Liberty." "This is outrageous," shouted a reptilian council member. "The humans have deceived us." "Have we?" John asked, addressing the entire council now. "We presented ourselves exactly as we are, a species seeking peaceful relations with the galactic community. At no point did I make any false claims about Earth's military capabilities. You deliberately concealed your true technological level," Zax accused, "just as you concealed your intentions to strip mine our planet and enslave our people," John replied evenly. "Yes, we conducted reconnaissance before revealing our full capabilities. Earth's history has taught us caution when dealing with unknown powers." The main view screen at the front of the chamber activated unexpectedly. The image showed the bridge of an enormous vessel. At its center stood a woman in a crisp blue uniform adorned with gold insignia, her short hair gray at the temples, and her posture commanding. "This is Admiral Betty Rogers of the United Earthship Liberty," she announced, her voice filling the chamber. "I request direct communication with the Galactic Council regarding the ongoing diplomatic mission of Ambassador Miller." Zax stared at the screen in shock. "How did you override our communication systems? Our security protocols are..." "Your security protocols were analyzed and bypassed approximately 14 minutes ago," Admiral Rogers replied matter-of-factly. "I apologize for the intrusion, but after monitoring your treatment of our diplomatic envoy, we felt direct communication was necessary." The view on the screen widened, revealing the Bridge of the Liberty in its entirety. Officers moved efficiently between advanced control stations. Holographic displays showed tactical information and system statuses. "I understand you've been discussing terms with our diplomatic envoy," Rogers continued. "I'm here to ensure those discussions remain equitable." The screen changed again, pulling back to an external view that revealed the true scale of the Liberty. A massive vessel nearly 15 kilometers in length, bristling with advanced weapon systems and surrounded by a fleet of smaller but equally imposing warships. "By the Void," whispered one of the alien counselors. "Their ship is larger than our orbital defense platform." John watched the reactions around the room with interest. The Zentari delegation was stunned into silence. Some council members seemed terrified, while others appeared to be rapidly reassessing their positions. "Admiral Rogers," John said formally, "thank you for joining us. I was just explaining to the Council that humanity's policy of controlled information disclosure is a prudent first contact protocol." "Indeed, Ambassador," Rogers replied with a slight nod. "For centuries, we've observed developing civilizations across our region of space before making contact. We found it's the best way to understand their true nature." "Centuries?" Zax sputtered. "You claim your species has been spacefaring for centuries? Our intelligence indicated you achieved faster than light. Travel less than 30 years ago. Your intelligence saw what we wanted it to see," John explained. "The small ships, the limited technology, the seemingly recent emergence into space, all carefully crafted to gauge how you would treat a species you believed to be less advanced than your own." "A test," Sorix of the Krell said, crystal body, gleaming. "And one that many here have failed." The chamber fell silent as this realization sank in. "Admiral Rogers," Zack said, attempting to recover some control of the situation. "Your unexpected arrival is most impressive. Perhaps we should restart our negotiations with this new information in mind." The Admiral's face remained impassive. "That seems wise. Ambassador Miller has full authority to represent Earth's interests. I suggest you listen more carefully to his terms this time." John stepped forward, placing a small device on the central table. It projected a holographic display of the solar system, highlighting the extensive infrastructure humans had carefully concealed from initial scans. The display showed massive orbital habitats around Earth, terraforming projects on Mars, mining, operations throughout the asteroid belt, research stations orbiting Jupiter and Saturn, and military outposts strategically positioned throughout the system. "As you can see," John explained as the council members stared in astonishment, "Earth is not the primitive outpost you assumed. We've been developing our technology and expanding through our solar system for over 200 years. 200 years? Repeated a small furry counselor in disbelief. "But that would mean you achieved spaceflight well before discovering faster-than-light travel." "Correct," John confirmed. "We spent nearly a century exploring our own system using conventional propulsion before developing warp technology." "Why, the deception?" asked Sorix, the only alien who seemed more curious than alarmed. "Why present yourselves as less advanced?" "History," John replied simply. "Throughout human history, whenever technologically disparate cultures met, the less advanced one typically suffered. We decided to observe before revealing our full capabilities." "And what did you observe?" Sorix asked, though many suspected the answer already. John's expression hardened slightly. "We observed that the Zentari and many of their allies immediately planned to exploit what they perceived as a weaker species. No diplomatic courtesy, no respect for sovereignty, just calculation of how quickly they could strip our resources and subjugate our people." The accusation hung in the air, undeniable after the previous day's discussions. "Not all of us agreed with this approach," said Neely, the purple-furred representative John had met earlier. "Some of us believe in true diplomatic relations. We noted those who objected," Admiral Rogers said from the screen. "Rest assured, we've been carefully documenting which council members advocated for fair treatment and which did not." Zax's skin had shifted to a dull gray, a color John hadn't seen before. "What happens now?" the Zentari commander asked. John looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of each council representative in turn. "Now we begin real negotiations, as equals." The council chambers had fallen into chaos. Species that had been laughing at humanity hours earlier were now frantically trying to distance themselves from the Zentari's colonization plans. Representatives huddled in small groups, whispering urgently and sending rapid communications to their homeworlds. John Miller stood calmly at the center of the storm, watching as the political landscape of the galaxy reshuffled itself before his eyes. Commander Zax approached him, moving with deliberate control. The Zentari leader's skin had shifted to a formal diplomatic blue, a stark contrast to the aggressive colors he had displayed earlier. "Ambassador Miller," Zax said, lowering his voice. "Perhaps we could discuss these new developments privately? There has clearly been a misunderstanding between our peoples." "A misunderstanding?" John repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Yesterday, you were planning mining operations on Earth and labor camps for my people. That seemed quite clear." Several nearby representatives quickly moved away, pretending they hadn't heard. "Politics often requires posturing," Zax said smoothly. "Surely you understand. What matters is where we go from here." On the main view screen, Admiral Rogers watched the exchange with interest. "Ambassador Miller has my complete confidence in these negotiations," she said. "However, I believe transparency would benefit everyone at this point. I suggest we continue these discussions with all council members present." John nodded in agreement. "A wise approach, Admiral." Zax's mandibles clicked in frustration, but he had little choice. "Very well." As the council members returned to their seats, The atmosphere in the chamber had transformed completely. Where before there had been contempt and amusement toward the human representative, now there was caution and, in many cases, fear. "Let me be clear about Earth's position," John said, addressing the entire council. "We came here seeking peaceful relations and fair trade. Those goals have not changed despite the reception we received." He paused, looking around the chamber. "However, we will not accept any arrangement that fails to recognize Earth's sovereignty and equal status among galactic civilizations." "Equal status?" sputtered a bulbous alien from one of the platforms. "But you're newcomers to the galactic stage." "Are we?" John asked quietly. "Admiral Rogers, perhaps you could share the data packet we prepared." The main screen split, with Admiral Rogers on one side and a stream of information on the other. The data showed human observation posts that had been monitoring various alien civilizations for decades, including detailed reports on technological capabilities, cultural practices, and political structures. "We've been studying most of your civilizations since you achieved interstellar travel," Admiral Rogers explained. "In some cases, that's over a century of observation." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "You've been watching us?" asked a reptilian representative, scales bristling with indignation. "Just as you've been watching less developed worlds," John pointed out. "I believe the Zentari have observation posts monitoring 47 pre-spaceflight civilizations at this moment. We simply applied the same principle." "But how did you conceal your presence?" asked another counselor. "Our detection networks were designed to find what you expected to find," Admiral Rogers said from the screen. "Your systems look for known engine signatures, familiar communication patterns, and standard energy outputs. Our stealth technology was specifically developed to avoid those detection methods." John brought up another holographic display, this one showing a detailed map of known space with human observation outposts marked in blue. The council members stared in shock at the extent of human presence throughout the galaxy. "Your ships have been in our territories?" Zax demanded, his controlled diplomat's facade cracking slightly. "In neutral space, observing from a distance," John corrected. "We've been careful to respect territorial boundaries. Unlike some," he added pointedly. Zax's skin flushed dark with anger, but he remained silent. Orcs of the Krell moved forward on the crystalline platform. "I find it fascinating that humans developed such advanced stealth technology before revealing themselves to the galaxy at large. Most species prioritize weapons or faster travel methods." "Earth's history taught us to be cautious," John explained. "Throughout our past, first contact between different human civilizations often led to conflict, particularly when one side had technological advantages. We wanted to avoid that pattern when we reached the stars. A prudent approach, as events in have proven," Sorix observed. "The question remains," said a gaseous being from another platform, its translator converting the shifting clouds into speech. "What does Earth want from the Council now?" John turned to address the question. "The same thing we wanted yesterday: peaceful relations, cultural exchange, and fair trade. The only difference is that now you know we come as equals, not as victims." The hours that followed were filled with tense diplomatic discussions. Several species that had aligned with the Zentari quickly changed positions, offering Earth favorable trade deals and cultural exchange programs. Others remained wary but respectful of the human delegation's new status. Throughout it all, John noted which species adapted honestly to the new reality and which simply shifted their exploitation plans to more subtle approaches. Admiral Rogers remained on screen, occasionally offering input but mostly allowing John to lead the diplomatic efforts. By late evening, the Council had drafted a new resolution recognizing Earth as a sovereign power and establishing preliminary diplomatic protocols. The document notably lacked any mention of resource rights or protectorate status. As the session ended, Zax approached John one final time. The Zentari commander's skin had settled into a carefully neutral gray. "Ambassador Miller," he said formally, "the Zentari Empire acknowledges Earth's position and looks forward to mutually beneficial relations in the future." John nodded politely. Commander Zax, I appreciate your adaptability. Earth has no desire for conflict with the Zentari or any council species. No, Zax said, looking up at the screen where the Liberty remained visible. I imagine you don't need to desire conflict when you can win it so easily. After Zax departed, Sorix approached. The crystalline being seemed genuinely curious rather than threatened by humanity's revelation. Your strategy was quite brilliant, Ambassador, Sorix said. You allowed the Council to reveal its true nature before showing yours. A necessary precaution, John replied. We needed to know who would treat us fairly regardless of our perceived strength. Sorix's crystal form shimmered thoughtfully. And now you know. I suspect this knowledge will shape Earth's alliances for centuries to come. It already has, John confirmed. Later, in a private communication room, John spoke with Admiral Rogers without the Council listening. Phase 3 complete, Admiral, John reported. The Council has formally recognized Earth as a sovereign power. Several species have already requested separate talks for alliance or trade agreements. Excellent work, Ambassador, Rogers replied. And the Zentari? Contained. For now. They're too proud to admit defeat openly, but they've backed down from their colonization plans. I expect they'll be watching us very carefully from now on. Rogers nodded. As we'll be watching them. The Liberty will remain in orbit for the duration of your mission. The rest of the fleet has taken up position at the strategic points we identified. And the stealth monitoring stations? Still undetected. We're maintaining all observation protocols until further notice. John allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. 200 years of preparation, Admiral, all leading to this moment. And just the beginning of humanity's place in the galaxy, Rogers added. The President sends her congratulations, by the way. Your handling of the situation has been exactly as we hoped. After the communication ended, John looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth continued its centuries-long preparation for full galactic integration. New ships were being built, colonies were expanding, and humanity was finally ready to step onto the galactic stage. Not as victims or junior partners, but as a power to be reckoned with. The aliens had laughed at humans, right up until they saw what humanity was truly capable of. 3 days later, the diplomatic landscape had transformed entirely. The massive UES Liberty remained in orbit around the Council Station, a constant reminder of humanity's unexpected power. 5 other human vessels had taken up positions throughout the system, conducting what they called routine patrols. In the newly reconfigured council chambers, John Miller sat at a raised platform equal in height to the others, a symbolic gesture acknowledging Earth's status. The Zentari delegation had been formally censured by the Galactic Council, with several species breaking their long-standing alliances with the once dominant power. The crystalline Krell delegation now sat closest to the humans, having been the first to propose a formal alliance. Sorix had privately told John that the Krell had suspected for years that the Zentari were becoming too aggressive in their expansion. The Council recognizes Ambassador John Miller of Earth, announced the newly elected Council Speaker, a tall, willowy being from a species called the Navari. You have the floor. John stood, looking around at the assembled representatives. How different they looked now. Attentive, respectful, even eager. The mockery of his first appearance was a distant memory. The United Earth government proposes a mutual defense and trade agreement, John announced, open to all species who recognize the sovereignty and equal status of every sentient race, regardless of their technological development. His proposal appeared on screens throughout the chamber, a comprehensive plan for peaceful cooperation, technological exchange, and protection of developing worlds. At its core was a simple principle: respect for all intelligent life regardless of development stage. This would create a significant shift in galactic politics, noted a reptilian counselor. Many empires have built their economies on resource extraction from less developed worlds. Perhaps it's time for those economies to evolve, John suggested. Earth learned long ago that exploitation is never sustainable. Partnership benefits everyone in the long term. The motion passed with overwhelming support, the memory of the Liberty's imposing presence still fresh in everyone's mind. Even the Centauri, their influence greatly diminished, voted in favor. Later, in a private observation lounge overlooking the vast expanse of space, Admiral Rogers met with John to celebrate their success. The Admiral had finally come aboard the station in person, her tall figure commanding respect from aliens who passed by. "Did you see their faces when the full fleet decloaked?" Rogers asked with a small smile. 200 years of hiding our true capabilities, waiting for the right moment. "Humanity learned long ago that it's better to speak softly while carrying a big stick," John replied. "Though I admit, the Liberty is quite a bit more than a stick." Through the viewport, they could see the Liberty in orbit, a masterpiece of human engineering, nearly 15 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull gleaming in the light of the system's sun. "It almost makes me feel bad for them," Rogers said, looking out at the stars. They never considered that a species that survived its own violent tendencies long enough to reach the stars might be more formidable than they appear. "Their mistake," John said, raising his glass in a toast, "to humanity's place among the stars, earned through preparation, not presumption." "What's next for you, Ambassador?" Rogers asked. "The President has asked me to remain here as Earth's permanent representative. We're establishing an embassy on the station." John smiled. "I hear Lisa and Sam are staying on as part of my staff." "Good choices," Rogers nodded. "And the Centauri?" "They'll adapt. They're already approaching us about technology exchanges. Apparently, our stealth systems are of particular interest to them." Both laughed at the irony. As John looked out at the stars, he thought about how quickly things had changed. Just a few days ago, aliens had laughed at humans, thinking them primitive newcomers to the galactic stage. Now those same aliens were scrambling to establish embassies on Earth, eager to understand the civilization they had so gravely underestimated. Throughout the sector, other human ships were emerging from hiding, revealing the true extent of Earth's presence in the galaxy. Observation posts that had operated in secret for decades now openly flew Earth's flag. Colonial outposts that had maintained radio silence made contact with the homeworld. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human leadership had begun. On Earth itself, citizens celebrated as news of the diplomatic victory spread. Schools and universities held special lectures explaining humanity's new role in the galaxy. Markets surged as trade agreements with alien civilizations were announced. And in a small classroom in New Chicago, a teacher pointed to a new map of known space with Earth prominently displayed at its center. "Remember, children," she said to her wide-eyed students, "the universe is vast and full of wonders. But never forget what made humanity strong, not just our ships or our technology, but our ability to learn from history and prepare for the future." One child raised his hand. "Is it true aliens laughed at us before they knew how strong we were?" The teacher smiled. "Yes, but they're not laughing anymore.